Security services. Services and mechanism. The International Telecommunication Union Telecommunication Standardization Sector provides some security services and some mechanisms to implement these services. So there are some security services provided and some mechanisms are there to implement these services. Security services and mechanisms are closely related because a mechanism or a combination of mechanisms are used to provide a service. So there is a relation between the security mechanisms and the security services. Also, a mechanisms can be used in one or more services. We briefly discuss them here to give general idea. We will discuss them in detail in later chapters devoted to specific services or mechanisms. So, security services. The various security services are data confidentiality, data integrity, anti-change, anti-replay, authentication, peer entity, data origin, non-repudiation, proof of origin, proof of delivery, and access controller. It is easy to relate one or more of these services to one or more of the security goals. It is also easy to see that these services have been designed to prevent the security attacks that we have already mentioned. Now, data confidentiality is designed to protect data from disclosure attack. Disclosure means you are disclosing something, you are telling something. So disclosure attack is that your information is getting leaked, it is getting disclosed. The service as defined by X.800 is very broad and encompasses confidentiality of the whole message or a part of message and also protection against traffic analysis. So it provides not only provides confidentiality of whole message or part of message but also provides protection against traffic analysis. It is designed to prevent snooping and traffic analysis attack. We have already seen data confidentiality attacks. There are two types of data confidentiality attacks, that is snooping and traffic analysis attack, and both of these are passive attacks. So data confidentiality protects the data from these type of attacks. Data integrity. Data integrity is designed to protect data from modifications, insertion, deletion, and replaying by an adversary. We saw that attacks due to on the data integrity will be modification of data, insertion of data, deletion of data, that is data is not reaching to the concerned party. Before that, the attacker is deleting the data. The attacker modifies the data for his or her own benefits. Replays the data, that is copies the message and then sends it after say half an hour or 40 minutes to the bank, and the bank might think that the transaction has to be done of the same amount. So it will just copy the message. So how can you prevent? So these type of attacks are your active attacks, and to prevent this, data integrity is required. It may protect the whole message or a part of message. Authentication. This service provides the authentication of the party at the other end of the line. In connection-oriented communication, it provides authentication of the sender or the receiver. Connection-oriented means suppose X is the person who wants to send message to Y. There will be a connection establishment between X and Y for the message to be transferred. So for message transfer, there will be a connection between X and Y. That is nothing but the TCP handshake connection. It can be any kind of connection between the sender and the receiver. So it will provide authentication for sender or the receiver. During connection establishment, that is peer entity authentication, such type of authentication is called as peer entity authentication. In connectionless communication, it authenticates the source of the data, that is data origin authentication. So in connectionless, it will be only the sender who is authenticated. In connection oriented, both the sender as well as the receiver are authenticated. Non-repudiation. Non-repudiation services protects against repudiation by the sender or the receiver. Repudiation means that the sender has denied sending any kind of messages and receiver is denying of receiving the message. That is the repudiation, when either of the party deny either sending or receiving of the message. So we have to see to it that the parties are not denying, neither the sender is denying nor the receiver is denying. For that we need to have non-repudiation. In non-repudiation with proof of origin, the receiver of the data can later prove the identity of the sender if denied. Proof of origin means the receiver of the data can later prove the identity of sender. How can it prove? Suppose there is a message sent through the email. Then what will the receiver do? The receiver will show the email ID of the sender and will prove that the sender has only sent the message if the sender is denying of sending any kind of messages. In non-repudiation with proof of delivery, the sender of the data can later prove that the data were delivered to the intended recipient. So there are two types of proof. There is proof of origin and proof of delivery. In proof of origin, it is the sender who has denied and the receiver has to prove that the origin, that is the sender, has only sent. And in proof of delivery, the receiver is denying of receiving any messages and the sender has to prove that it has actually delivered the messages. Next is access control. Access control provides protection against unauthorized access to the data. That means no unauthorized person can access the data. Only the authorized entity can access the data. The term access in this definition is very broad and can involve reading, writing, modifying, executing programs and so on.